اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. ما المعروف؟ تقدموا للإمام إن شاء الله. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين أبي القاسم محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. Now, I grew up in this land. I was about 9 years old when I came here. كان عمري 9 سنين لما جيت لهون. ولهجتي أنا لبنانية يعني. بس عم نتعلم إن شاء الله منكم شوية عراقي وخشوقة ورقة يعني عم نتعلم منكم يعني. رقي عفوا. بس هلا قلت لكم إن شاء الله إذا أنت تحت راية الإمام حسين عليه السلام كنا واحد. ما في بيناتنا. ما في من اللغات. أنت حبك وين؟ أنا معك وين؟ حبك بإمام حسين عليه السلام. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. You know, the first time I had to speak in front of people in high school, I was about 4'9". You know how short 4'9" is? Really short. I was about 85 pounds. When the wind blew, I probably would have fell over. That's how short I was, and that's how I was in high school. For the first semester, I don't think I even spoke to anyone. That's how shy I was as a person. But what happens to a person when they fall in love with Imam Hussein alayhi salam? There's nothing you can accomplish. Nothing. Because your heart becomes solid. It becomes so grounded in what you believe in. So your job is to bring that certainty to your own mind. You need to be convinced, 110%. Once you do that and you know you're on the right path, there's nothing that can stop you. That courage that you will have in your heart, that if the Imam right now was to rise and he would say, come, you would drop everything. Your parents, your wife, doesn't matter. You would drop everything and go. Because you're connected. So tonight, this is what I want to go after. How do you bring yourself to that certainty? How do you create that formula that connects you properly? Through the Imams alayhi salam and the Quran. Now, number one, the Prophet said, he goes, أنا مدينة العلم وعلي بابها. What is he telling you? This center here, can you enter it through its window? What would people consider you? A thief or someone who's trying to take something. You have to enter it through what? Its door. If you enter it through any other means that you're not given permission to enter, what happens? You're considered to be a thief. Think about that analogy. Who took over after the Prophet? Think about that. Who took over? If you enter it, the Prophet's telling you, if you want to get to me, go through Ali. That's what you have to do. That's what the Prophet's telling you. Now, let's go to the next step. حسين مني وأنا من حسين. أحب الله من؟ أحب حسين. Do you want? Subhanallah. Did the Prophet speak about anyone else like this? He's telling you, now if Imam Hussein alayhi salam did everything that he needed to do, and Allah loves him, didn't he uphold his prayer? Didn't he uphold his fast? Didn't he uphold his akhlaq? He had to, because Allah wouldn't give that equation to the Prophet. So that had to happen. He upheld everything that he needed to uphold. Now, how many times do you say this every day? Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Maliki Yawm al-Din, إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم. Who are these people? Who? How many times do you think about this every day? How many times in your prayers? اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. I ask you one question. Who are you asking? اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. Who are you asking? You're asking Allah. If Allah gives you this path must be perfect. Because Allah has given it to you. It means it has to be perfect. So now, show us, then the next verse, it says, اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم. Show us the path of those who you bestowed your mercy upon. Go to Imam Hussein. أحب الله من أحب Hussein. Do you see the connection? It's so simple. It's so simple. It's all over the place. So now on this level, I was having a conversation with one of the brothers who's of the other school of thought. He was telling me that I can go directly to Allah. I don't need an in-between. We started talking. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. He's telling me that he can stand in front of Allah and say he's directly with Allah. I told him I should follow you. If you're that close to Allah, I should follow you. I said to him, if I were to put you and the Prophet together, and I tell the Prophet, let's say, to say, Ya Allah, and you say, Ya Allah, who would hit their mark? Who would know who they were calling? You or the Prophet?
Prophet.
Any one of us would say the Prophet. So I told him, you have to line up behind who? The Prophet. Because you can never equate to the Prophet. So you have to go through the Prophet to get to who? To Allah Azza wa Jal. I asked him another question. He asked me about the turba. I said, why do you point to the Kaaba? Why don't you go straight up? Why? Why? Why do you direct yourself to the Kaaba? Go straight up. You don't need the Kaaba. But what? Allah has decreed the Kaaba, that you have to point to Him to get to who? To Allah. See how it works? Then I asked him, this is where I got him and he couldn't go anywhere. You ready?
Yeah.
I said to him, when you say Ya Allah, aren't your words the median between you and Allah?
Yes.
Then he said to me, he goes, well, I can just think it in my mind. I said, isn't then your thought the means between you and Allah? He said, yes. Then I said to him, so there's always a means between you and Allah. Always. There's always something between you and Allah. I said, who picks that means? You or Allah? Allah Azza wa Jal. So there's always something between you and Allah. You can never go direct. Now some of us, we think that we are the means. I know what I said to him, you know what you're saying? You're saying that you're the means to Allah. If you can go directly to Allah, that means you should be number one. You should be where the Prophet's at. He couldn't answer. So on this level, there's always something between you and Allah. What is then, one has to ask, what is the best means between you and Allah? What is it? Is it what you pick, or is it what Allah picks? Obviously. So now on this level, let's see who the closest thing is to Allah. We have to see that now. In the Quran, it says about the Prophet. Before that, he says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. It says about the Prophet, it says, ما ينطق عن الهوى إن هو إلا وحي يوحى وما أتاكم الرسول فخذوه وما نهاكم عنه فانتهوا. All these things are about the Prophet. The Prophet's telling you, whatever the Prophet gives you, take it. Whatever he forbids you from, remove yourself. Beautiful verse. أطيعوا الله وأطيعوا الرسول وأولي الأمر منكم. Allah has given you three categories. First category, أطيعوا الله. Pay allegiance to Allah. Connect to Allah. وأطيعوا الرسول. Connect to the Prophet. وأولي الأمر منكم. Who is this person? Who's this third category? Who is it? You have to find out. Because, you want to know why? There's a hadith by the Prophet. He says, من مات وليس في عنقه بيعة لإمام مات مميتة جاهلية. Ya Allah. This makes the back of my hair stand up. Why? Because if you don't pick the right Imam, you're in trouble. It says whoever dies without paying allegiance to an Imam, meaning a leader, then he has died the death of an ignorant person. Now, let's say your leader is like Saddam or Bin Laden or all these people. You know what happens? You know on Judgment Day who you're going to be raised with? Who? You're going to be raised with that person. A bearded man came and he was talking. It was in the middle of Ramadan. He goes to me, he says, or it wasn't me, it was someone else. He said to that person, he said, and he's stroking his beard, he said, Muawiyah was a good man. Imagine the arrogance of someone saying something like that. The person responded, and look where he put them. Look where he put him. He put him in a place where he cannot go further. He said, tonight is Ramadan. He goes, I'm gonna pray tonight that Allah Azza wa Jal raises you with Muawiyah on the Day of Judgment. And he said, you do the same thing for me. He goes, pray for me that Allah raises me with Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. You have to choose your leader. You have to connect. Now on this level, we know that the Prophet is the closest thing to Allah. Let's look at the first verse. أطيعوا الله وأطيعوا الرسول وأولي الأمر منكم. أطيعوا الله وأطيعوا الرسول. Let's see where the relationship is between Allah and the Prophet. This means that there's nothing between Allah and the Prophet. There can be no other person. Because the Prophet is the closest thing to who? Allah Azza wa Jalla. Now, in the Quran, Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. In the Quran it says about the Prophet, it says he got so close to Allah that it says قَوْسَيْنِ أَوْ أَدْنَى. He was so close to Allah that he was 2 arrows length close, or it says even closer. So this is the most perfect creation of Allah, because nothing can come between him and Allah. By the way, you know when they say that the Prophet couldn't read, you know what that really means? That means that the Prophet had no other teacher. Right now you have teachers, correct?
Yes.
That means if I want to know about you, who do I go to?
Your teacher.
Your teacher. So imagine if the Prophet had a teacher. Wouldn't he be above the Prophet?
Yes.
Absolutely. So this is what this means. It means that Allah Azza wa Jal was Allah. He was the teacher of the Prophet. No one else can come between the Prophet and Allah Azza wa Jal. No one. That's why we follow the Prophet. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. We established the relationship between the Prophet and Allah. Now, أطيعوا الله وأطيعوا الرسول. We established that. وَأُولِي الْأَمْرِ مِنْكُمْ. Now we have to establish between the second and the third. How do we do this? Go to the Quran again. Let's go to the Quran. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, Ayat al-Mubahala. Everybody knows. Ayat al-Mubahala is when the Christians of Najran were challenging who? The Prophet. They were challenging the Prophet and they were telling him that we are the rightful successors of the religions and we are closer to Allah than you are. The Prophet tells them, put your money where your mouth is. Let's go. Somebody challenges you, let's say to a duel or anything. The Prophet's saying, come on, let's go. Let's see what you got. The Prophet tells them, he says, let's do mubahala. Mubahala is a calling, meaning a supplication to Allah. And whoever's wrong, then the damnation of Allah, Allah's wrath, will come down upon those people. This is what happens. So he says to them, Allah commands him, he says, فَقُلْ. He tells him, say. Who can cite the verse? Who can cite the verse? It says, say. فَقُلْ أَدْعُوا أَبْنَاءَكُمْ. He says, تعالوا, come. نَدْعُوا أَبْنَاءَنَا وَأَبْنَاءَكُمْ وَنِسَاءَنَا وَنِسَاءَكُمْ وَأَنفُسَنَا وَأَنفُسَكُمْ. This is the way the Prophet responds to them. He says, bring your children, we will bring ours. Bring your women, we will bring ours. And bring yourselves, we will bring ourselves. The last part is the key that connects the whole equation. What? Who does the Prophet bring? Look at our books, look at their books, look at anyone's books, and see who the Prophet brought. For abna'ana, meaning our children, you know who he brought? Imam al-Hasan wal Imam al-Hussein. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. For the women, he brought Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam. This is the key. Who is the closest thing to the Prophet? To the Prophet in the third level. When he says, the Prophet says, أنفسنا وأنفسكم. The Prophet brings who? Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. So, is there anything closer to you than your own self? Is there anything in this world closer to you than your own self? No. There's nothing closer to you than who you are. The Prophet says, أنفسنا وأنفسكم. Imam Ali is so close to the Prophet that no one can fit that position. No one. So, وَأُولِي الْأَمْرِ مِنْكُمْ belongs to who? Imam Ali alayhi salam. See the equation? It's so simple to put it together. We established number one, that Tawheed is the essential pinnacle that runs everything. Number two now, the Prophet is what? He's that connection to Allah. Number three is who's the closest thing to Allah? Imam, the Prophet. Number three is who's the closest thing to the Prophet? That's simple. See the equation? 1, 2, 3. Take it anywhere. Look at the ahadith about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Look at how he talks about hadith taqalain. Everyone knows. Look at how he talks about his family. And this level. لا أسألكم عليه أجرا إلا المودة قربا. Do you want something closer than that? This should trigger your heart. When you have nights like this, that when Imam Hussein's even name is mentioned, you should understand that this is the path that you're taking. Everyone is choosing a path. Everyone. You are choosing a path tonight. You are setting that road. But don't just set that road for 10 days. Set the road for the rest of your life. And say that I'm going to hold up to this position and I'm not going to move because this is what I've chosen as a person. This is what you do. Now, do we also follow in this direction? Do we always do that? How about some of us when we listen to music? Some of us, we do listen to music. Now, I want to ask you a quick question. Really quickly. Let's say, MashaAllah, بيجي الجواز وقت الجواز. وانت عم تكتب. عم تعزم الناس. وإجا وقت ورسول الله كان موجود معنا. The Prophet is with us today. Any one of you right now, put your hands up. Who would want the Prophet at their wedding? Who would want the Prophet at their wedding? Everyone. Correct? But there's a little problem. You know what the problem is?
Music.
You're going to have music at your wedding. So now you come to write your invitation. And you think of the Prophet. Would the Prophet come to your wedding?
No.
Would he? I want to go into this really quickly because I study psychology and I study some of the things that have these effects on you in terms of music. I chose this. I wanted to set this scale so you understand that anything you do will affect you. You've chosen this road. We're all here for a reason, correct or not? We're all here for a reason. What's the reason? Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And he's the path that we've chosen. Now, here's another scenario. Let's say you're driving and you're in the car. You got the music on. Imagine that Imam Hussein is sitting next to you. What would you do? What would you put? Quran. Would you put a dua in? Absolutely. So, see, check your own actions. Always check your own actions. Where are you? The smallest little thing, sometimes it's small as a smile. Sometimes we're so upset. You know, I was driving, and this man, actually, you know what? I'm going to tell you a different story. Look how Allah tests you. Sure, no problem. I'll tell you the first one. I'm driving, and I'm really in a hurry. So I didn't cut this man off, but I kind of got in his way a little bit. He pulls up next to me, and he says, and he starts just going crazy. I said to him, I'm sorry if I upset you. And he just got completely quiet. How do you take someone who's so enraged, but then what? He's like, I'm sorry. He's like, you know what? I just got in a fight with my wife. You know when you're angry, it's like having a sunburn. The smallest person that touches you, or anything that touches you, you get what? Hurt. So when somebody's angry, be careful. Be careful with your anger and how you display it. I was on my way to a meeting. I own an advertising company. I had a very important client that I needed to get to. I had a half hour. Alhamdulillah, I was dressed nicely. I was ready for the occasion. I pull up on this light. I pull up on the light. Then all of a sudden, everyone starts moving away from my lane. So I said to myself, okay, there's something going on. So all of a sudden, I find myself behind this car that's not moving. It's got its hazards on. So all of a sudden, I see this lady come out, starts tugging on the door of the next car. Old lady. She gets back in her car. Now, I have a decision to make. You want to see how you get tested on the smallest little levels? Even your smile is a test. The smallest little things you do are a test. Constantly. The way you look at someone else is a test. إِنَّا خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ مِن نُطْفَةٍ أَمْشَاجٍ نَبْتَلِيهِ. You're going to be tested and you're going to see where you're at. Now, Imam Ali alayhi salam, he says, contemplation is like a mirror to yourself. Contemplate, think about, account for yourself before you get accounted for. Meaning that when you contemplate, it's like a mirror for you to really look inside of yourself and see what's going on. So now, I have a decision to make. Do I get out of the car and help the lady? I have a meeting. The world is calling me. Think about this. Think about when we go towards the world. The Battle of Uhud, watch this. The Battle of Uhud, what did the Prophet command those 50 archers to do? He told them, go on top of the mountain and don't come down till I tell you so. Don't come down. So the Muslims in the battle started winning and they were moving the enemy back. What did the archers do?
Came down.
They came down. You want to know the same thing. They went after what? They went after the reward of the world. They stopped listening to the Prophet and they went after the world. The same thing will happen to us here. You want to stray away from the Prophet and go after the world? You will see it. I had a decision to make. Do I go after the world or do I help this lady? Now here's the position. I get out of the car. It's raining now. I get out of the car and I swear to you, the next thing that I saw almost puts a tear to my eye. Why? She puts down the window and it's like a 90-year-old woman and she's shaking. She's so scared. She puts down the window and she's just crying. I said, Ya Allah, please help me help her. Please. Then you say, Ya Hussein, this is, if you want to know you're connected, this is how you see where you are. If these thoughts come to you at this level, you know there's something else. Now watch what happens. I turn on the defrost because all of her windows were fogged up. I turn on the defrost and I just move her away from the road. And I get her out of the street. So she pulls out. Now, she pulls around and I go towards the car. She goes, Ya ibni sa'adni. Now, I'm thinking of my appointment. Again, I'm being tested again. I said, Ya Allah, at this level, I'm taking my hands off the wheel. You lead the way. I don't know what's gonna happen. You lead the way. Now at this level, she says to me, she says, I don't know where I'm going. I go, where do you live? She's like, I don't know where I'm at. She goes, the street I know starts with the letter P. I go, you don't have any more than that so I can help? She's like, no, that's all I know. It starts with the letter P. So when I said that, she comes and she says to me, I go, let's get in the car and start moving. We started moving. Now she's driving so slow and the time is ticking on my appointment. And I'm just, Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah. I'm like, so finally I pull around and we've been driving for about 5 minutes. And I pull up and I'm just waiting for her to what? To catch up with me. She finally catches up with me. I get out of the car. She gets out of the car. You know what she says to me next? She says, that's my house. I actually drove right to the front of her house. Now, when you get the verses in your head, وَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ وَكَفَى بِاللَّهِ وَكِيلًا. This is amazing because you start tasting the pleasure of Allah. When He is happy with you, the pleasure that you taste is amazing because your tawakkul is there. He is guiding you. Now, Imam Hussein is our road. He's for all of us. He's not just for me, you, He's for the whole world. If you want to uphold this road, look at your akhlaq. Look when you smile at someone, when you frown at someone. By the way, Imam Sajjad alayhi salam, Imam Sadiq afwan, he says, you want to hurt your parents? You want to hurt your parents? He says, give them a mean look. Just a mean look. Or your mother. The mother is amazing. Take care of your mothers. This is what you need to uphold. You want to hang on to Imam Hussein? Look at your akhlaq. Look at how you treat others. وآخر دعوانا and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.